You are listening to the Sacred Pathways podcast, stories and wisdom from walking the heart's way. I am your host and co-journer, Sydney Searchwell Simpson, and I am thrilled to walk this journey with you. Bismillah. Let us begin. Wow. Wow, has it been a long time? It feels like it's been forever since I've sat down to record anything, and that's because for probably 6 months of my life, that's what my life was. I had so much energy and passion to record, and then it all disappeared. And I'm grateful that I honored that, because now I get to return when the inspiration came, when it felt right, when I didn't have to be forced. And there's so much grace and there's so much power in that. But I'm coming here, it's 5 a.m. I woke up this morning early to do my prayers and connection, and I just felt the call. And so it's interesting because I don't have anything prepared. I didn't write down anything. I just woke up this morning, and the past 15, maybe 20 minutes of my conscious awakeness in this body have brought me here, wanting to share a beautiful message that I hope offers you, whenever it is that you receive this, whenever it is that you need it, a bit of faith and understanding of the process of contraction and expansion, of closeness, and the necessary illusion of distance from God, and its role in understanding just how beautiful it is to experience God's presence. But I'm going to get into all of that. I'm giving too much away. So I'm just going to share from the heart, y'all. Where do I start? I'll start from last week. I've had a very interesting week. Many challenges have showed up this week that have sort of, thrown me off my flow from, just receiving documents that I was not expecting, to physically getting sick for the first time in a very long time. I felt completely knocked off, in a way that I haven't. And on top of that, I felt my distancing from God. And even though I know that nothing, not even our perceptions, not even our actions in this world can distance ourselves from the love and the presence of our Creator, I knew that intellectually. I knew what I was feeling experientially, and experientially I felt cold, I felt distant, I felt silence. It's interesting to go from, the conversations and the openness with God is present in my life, but it's interesting to go from feeling the receptivity and hearing the voice and feeling the presence to feeling like I was speaking to a wall, and knowing that that wall wasn't a wall crafted by the beloved, but that wall was actually one crafted by my own ego. So it was really interesting to be going through life's challenges with that level of awareness of, I feel that there's a wall, I feel that there's a distancing, but still I'm going to show up, and still I'm going to pray, and still I'm going to invite conversation. Because that awareness was there, that wall, but there was a deeper knowing, God is here, and still God is here, and still I'm being heard. Even if it feels like I'm not being heard, I know that I'm being heard. And that knowing became very critical, specifically over the last 3 days, which coincided with my 3 days of sickness, where it's been hard emotionally. I noticed that there was a lot of doubt on my path, and this doubt felt different. It didn't feel like it was the projected doubts and fears that I had been navigating a lot over this journey, where I could see, wait, this is not mine, this is not mine. It definitely felt like an internal battle where I hadn't realized how my ideas and my attachment to those ideas and my assumptions and my expectations of how it is that I thought my path would turn out, it didn't. And I didn't realize how along the way my heart was hardening. My heart was really hardening towards not even just the divine as something outside of myself, but it was also hardening myself from myself. I remember as I was going through that grieving process where it was like all I could pray for was like, God, I was like, please help me believe in my path again. Like, please help me believe in life and new possibilities and hope again. I felt like the faith, the courage, the conviction, the vigor, all of that was disappearing. And it was really hard, and I'm going to cry about it because I felt like I was losing a part of myself that I could not lose because I knew that I could not survive without that. So it felt like I had like a tiny little spark, maybe even just an ember, and I had to protect that. I had to hold that because I couldn't let it go out, because to let it go out would be to give away that gift of life that I've been given, and I couldn't do that. And so it was interesting going through that journey where physically I was knocked out because I was sick. Oh my gosh. And then emotionally I felt like I was being knocked out. I remember feeling like I don't have strength to go through this. I don't have this. I feel like I've lost so much of myself that I've depended on to walk this path thus far. And it was interesting because, and this is the beauty of praying from the heart and praying sincerely and just arriving as you are to the beloved, because it's like the beloved already knows the truth. There's never a request ever for you to arrive pretending to be other than you are. And it came to the point where yesterday, which was definitely like the peak of the emotional collapse, where I, in reading, I've been returning to this book, The Secrets of Divine Love, beautiful text that just talks about the spiritual journey into the heart of Islam. And she had said, we don't have to be all powerful because God is already all powerful. We don't have to be all knowing because God is already all knowing. And I never realized that that's what I was trying to be. I had this idea that to be someone of courage who walks sincerely their heart's path, I had to be like the beautiful models of the prophets that I had seen, that I had connected to. And there's so much poured into their faith and their courage and this like conviction that they were just like these super strong people, but their strength didn't just come from them depending on themselves. It came from their dependence on the divine. It came from their dependence on God's strength. And that's what I had to surrender to yesterday. Like when it came to my physical health, when it came to my emotional well-being, my spiritual well-being, I was like, God, if I'm being so honest with you, I don't have the strength to do this. And that section in that book that reminded me that I don't have to be all powerful. I don't have to be all knowing. Thank God. I don't want to. And I don't need to. That's not what's being asked of me. Really, I was like, God, like, I need your strength. Like, please allow me to just really sit and rest in your hands, essentially. And it was beautiful because I did. And I bawled, I sobbed, I let it out. I was like, whatever, like, I need to. I love crying so much. It's so healing, everyone. Gosh, I really wish that culturally we were more accepting of just emotions. They're so powerfully healing. Anyways, so after that time, I woke up the next morning, which was yesterday, and I could still feel that heavy spirit of just, man, things didn't work out how I wanted them to be. How am I supposed to walk forward on my path and keep moving forward when there's no guarantee, the vulnerability of pursuing a thing where there's no guarantee. I'm like, nobody prepared the pilgrims for this. Oh God, would the pilgrim walk the path if they knew all that the path held? And there's grace in the fact that we don't know. But anyways, yeah, I felt that heaviness of spirit, but something in me, was just like, no, I'm not going to dwell there. I'm going to acknowledge that it's present. There's no denying it, but I'm not going to build a home in that. I'm going to walk with, even if it's just a tiny step, because I had a mustard seed of faith. I literally just had a mustard seed. I'm going to walk forward with a little mustard seed of faith. And that's what I'm going to offer and be like, I'm going to take this step, even if my heart is not fully in it yet, even if my heart is still hardened, and even if my mind is creating all of these narratives of it's not going to work out, because it hasn't worked out, because I have this idea of what things working out looks like, versus really trusting and believing in the perfection of God's plan. And not because I've been told about the perfection of God's plan, because I myself have experienced the perfection of the divine's plan. So I walked forward with that faith, and that looked like doing just a little bit of inspired work. And when I did, it was interesting, because when I finished doing that, I didn't feel fully changed. Again, I couldn't feel more connected to my heart, but what I did know is that I wasn't as connected to the doubts and the fears that were literally paralyzing me and taking away from the power that has propelled this path forward. And then that afternoon, I went on a small little walk with one of my dearest friends, and I shared with her my heart. I was like, Shy, listen, and this might be triggering for folks, but I'm going to share very honestly and authentically, what people could perceive as suicidal urges, but I knew there weren't suicidal urges. I said, Shy, listen, I'm not going to kill myself, but I am having a hard time right now believing that there is something worth living for, and that is hurting me. I can feel how that is hurting me. It feels like, as someone who lives and loves living passionately, and it felt like a massive death. And I was like, I don't know how to navigate the fact that I'm losing a part of me that feels so critical to my being on this planet. And we were able to connect about that. She shared lots of wisdom about the story of Elijah and the desert of dry bones. And I was like, bro, that's what I feel like I'm living in. And we were able to laugh, and I was able to remember that I'm not alone on this journey, and that part of the ways in which I don't need to rely on my strength anymore. I can rely on the strength of my friends. I can rely on the strength of the earth. Thank God we had gone on a beautiful walk. We were sitting in the sun. We were feet and hands on the earth. So we also had the strength of our earth mother. And all of that strength is just the many ways in which the beloved expresses their strength to us, is through our friends, through our companions on the path, through the earth. God, it felt so good. And I had gone and done, right after that walk, a healing session with a healer I've been working with over the past 2 years. And she just reminded me of my path in a way that I was I found my power again, because I was no longer depending on it myself. As if I was this endless battery of power. I'm not. I'm a powerful soul. There's no doubt on the planet about that, but I'm also a human. And humans are so dependent. That was some wisdom that my friend had shared with me. She was like, yeah, sometimes we need to remember how dependent we are on quite literally everything. We need air, we need water, we need companionship, we need physical touch, we need the divine, and we can't provide those things for ourselves. We can't. We're so dependent, and it's totally okay. It's fine. We were made to be that way, because our strength is not enough to navigate the complexities of the world, period. But it's also not enough to navigate the complexities of this world at this time, and that is okay. It's not a problem. that we are dependent. It's not a problem, it's our design. So a bunch of things unfolded, yesterday, and I found myself at the end of the day feeling inspired again. And as an artist, as a person who's alive, I can't even explain how good it felt to feel alive again through inspiration. It felt like, yes, I'm connected to something, and yes, I felt like through that, my path, the things that I want to create through this path, the things that God wants to create on this path of life through me, were being given their fire again. The relief I felt in inspiration, like, it brings me to tears. Like, there's nothing in this world like feeling yourself come to life again. And it wasn't me that brought myself to life again. It wasn't. I had forgotten to mention that earlier that week I was experiencing spiritual numbness, and I could feel that my heart was beginning to close. And it's very interesting to feel that, to be aware of that. And I'm so grateful because I am aware of that. There are people who are walking in this world where that is their normal state, and I pray for them. I pray for them because it's a very painful place to be. It's a painful place to be. And I know that it's a painful place to be because I'm aware of its opposite experience. I'm aware of the joy and the bliss and the aliveness that comes from living with an open heart. That's what inspires my path. That's the goal of my path, ultimately, is to live and share and create from this open heart. However it is that God inspires me to. Last week, I had connected. I was like, why is it that I feel like my heart is hardening? And it feels like it's a very necessary process, but I'm like, it's uncomfortable. Like, I don't like this feeling, but it's happening. And by the grace of God, I was brought to and guided to a bunch of different, folks on the Sufi path who, from across time, who have mentioned the role of the spiritual numbness. I'm going to find a quote right now. I'm going to read a couple of the quotes right now that offered me some peace, that offered me some necessary peace to help me understand what was unfolding and what would unfold, that week. So I'm going to read 3. This first one is by Ibn Abbad of Ronda, and he had said, "Spiritual contraction has a purpose. It prevents the seeker from becoming attached to spiritual states rather than to God himself. It is a protection against spiritual pride, not a punishment for wrongdoing." The next is from Ibn Arabi in Meccan Revelations. And he says, "God's names include both the expander, Al-Basit, and the contractor, Al-Kabir. One who knows God must know him through all his names, not just those that bring comfort." And I've decided, because, this video was just a bunch of deeply inspirational quotes, I'm gonna share the video in the show notes, y'all, because y'all might be needing it if you're listening to this. But this last one I'll read is by Ahmad al-Alawi, and he said, "The one who never experiences spiritual dryness is in the most dangerous position, for they have not yet learned that spiritual states are gifts rather than possessions. Dryness teaches this essential lesson." And it's amazing because I never realized how attached I was to the experience of what I thought revelation was. I thought revelation was this awakening and opening of the heart, and I thought revelation was this joyous dance of just persistent, unending, openness. And I've learned my lesson. And I'm so grateful to have learned my lesson because my faith has been deepened in such a powerful way. I was reflecting to my friend when we were just sitting in the grass and just laughing about, man, is this human experience something different? And I was saying what I'm grateful for is that I was saying to her, even though it feels like externally my life hasn't changed, internally I'm a whole, completely new, different person. I'm so new. I'm a new person. I don't know what to say other than that. And I'm so grateful because part of me recognizing that newness was realizing how deeply I turn to the divine in everything now. In my states of joy, I turn to God, in gratitude and in praise. In my states of sorrow, I turn to God for comfort and whatever gratitude I can muster. And what I really learned through this is how necessary our awareness and our going fully through that contraction is for us to really experience the expansion. It just reminds me of Tajalli, of divine self-revelation. It's so beautiful that God reveals his many, endless, numerous, beautiful faces to us. And I think one of the ways that God does this is through the wholeness of life. You can't deny any experience that comes towards you. And that brings me back to presence. That's what inspired this episode, which I'm really hoping makes sense to y'all. It feels good to my heart to be sharing in this way, so if there's any judgment around it, I don't need it. That's me projecting onto y'all. I'm gonna let that go. But anyways, presence. So after going through all of those experiences yesterday where my faith was being renewed, not by myself, but just by the gracious actions of the divine leading my life, I went to bed with gratitude, and I woke up this morning early for my prayers with so much gratitude. And my prayer really was like, God, it feels so good to feel your presence again, to be moved by your presence again. And I feel so blessed that I know your presence, because there's no greater gift than knowing your presence. And because of that, there's no greater gift that I can offer but to invite other folks into knowing your presence. And I thought about how that prayer came from my heart so sincerely, and it came because of the journey that I walked, where I was able to feel, and I think it's very easy, very, very easy for folks who have been walking this path for a long time, in the awareness of God and the presence of the divine, and witnessing and knowing and experiencing, all of the beautiful ways in which the divine expresses themselves. But it's easy to forget what it's like to not know God. And when I look at the state of this world, it's easy for me to see the fact that many people don't know God in the experiential way. That's what's missing from this world, is that we haven't acknowledged the presence of the divine within all living beings. We haven't acknowledged the presence of the divine in the children that are being starved in Gaza. We haven't acknowledged the presence of the divine in the people who are being used and enslaved in order to build, the materials that I'm using, my phone, my laptop, this microphone. We haven't acknowledged the presence of the divine in the earth that provides everything we need, every single thing we need to sustain these heavenly bodies. Like, we haven't. And it's probably because for lots of people haven't been able to acknowledge the presence of divine within themselves. And when we can't acknowledge that, we can't experience that. And that's a very painful way to live. And I think it's a responsibility of those who do know God, and not just God as we've been told to know God, but who have experientially opened themselves enough to witness God however God reveals himself. We have a responsibility to apply that compassionate understanding and still meet this world. And I think this is the greatest act of service. This reminds me of the first episode that I accidentally published on Sacred Pathways about emptying and being filled with the presence of God. To invite folks into the experience of God through our presence, through our knowing, through our own presencing with God, and through the embodiment of whatever it is that we can embody, that presence is the greatest gift that we can give to the world at this time. And we give that gift to the world in so many different ways. We can give that gift of God's presence to every single being that we engage with today, from the person who maybe is making our coffee, to the person that we walk past on the street, to the tree that we always welcomes us whenever it is that we go on walks, to the animals around us, to the smallest of ants that's crawling on our legs as we sit outside. We can offer that divine presence, and in that space we're expanding their gift. We're expanding the gift, and we're expanding the possibility that more and more people can experientially know God, because that's how the world is changed. That's how the world can be changed, because that experiential knowing awakens something that we ourselves cannot awaken. We can't. We can't. So that's my testimony, y'all. That's my testimony. I love this full circle moment of having gone through the process where I was like, whoa, yeah, I've contracted to absolutely nothing. And because I'm absolutely nothing, I know I need the absolute everything more than ever. And I'm grateful because walking through that experience has offered me so much wisdom. It's offered me so much understanding about where it is I am on my journey, and offered me the experience of just how compassionate and merciful and perfect, so perfect it all is. God's plan is, God's knowing is, and the perfection is expressed through the process. And so wherever it is that you are right now in your faith, wherever it is that you are right now in your journey, I pray this sharing offers you comfort. And I pray that this sharing offers you whatever guidance and peace that it can. And may it nourish this flame, even if it's the tiniest flame, even if it's literally an ember. May it hold and protect that ember, so that when the time comes and the container is ready for the flame to be ignited again, you're still there holding that ember. If that's all you have, bring it to the table, It's probably a quote somewhere in some ancient book, because there's truth to it. There's truth in these ancient, timeless teachings. So, yeah, I wanted to share that whole and unfiltered and funny and probably jumping from point to point, but it's true, and it's offered in sincerity. Oh, folks, I want to say it feels good to be back, but I'm not sure if I'm coming back into what it is that was formed before, because again, I'm new, I'm very different, and what a blessing that is. And I'm different because of the process, but I will be arriving true, and maybe I don't need to figure that out right now. Maybe it's still just when my heart is inspired, I go for it, and when I follow that, the image and the direction becomes more clear. But anyways, I don't have to get into that. I just wanted to offer y'all the story. I wanted to offer y'all a breath. It's like blowing breath on the ember. I wanted to offer you the breath of life, because I've been gifted again the breath of life. And if you don't have the strength to hold that, here's some that I've been given. I'm sending love. I'm sending you peace. I'm sending you presence. And yeah, the knowing that God is here to be experienced through all things, through all beings. And I pray that your heart is present enough to be there with it. Mwah. Ciao. If you are interested in sharing your heart path story, art, or in sharing a paradigm-shifting conversation on the podcast, you can find the application in the show notes or the description bar. There you will also find links to join our community on Substack, where I share personal and emergent audios related to the episode themes and my personal process of living and being another way. Come engage and connect with other listeners and co-journers in the gatherings and conversations held only on Substack. You can also find the link to my website, Jivan Mukta Healing, to learn more about the work that I do to be of service to the world at this time. Until then, I wish you and your beloveds peace and presence on the path and journey. Connect soon. Thank you for listening to Sacred Pathways, stories and wisdom from walking the heart's way. As a budding show, I would be incredibly grateful if you supported this podcast by giving us a rating, sharing this or any other episode with your loved ones in person and online, and letting me know in the comment section below how this episode resonated with you. Engagement is lovingly received and appreciated if you have received value from this. See you next time.